Hook the lie we were taught. When you hear the word pirate, you probably imagine lawless criminals, men with black flags, cutlasses, and no allegiance to anyone but greed. But what if the most successful pirates in history were not criminals at all? What if they were licensed, insured, and quietly protected by governments? Here's the uncomfortable mystery. Some of the greatest fortunes, empires, and even modern financial systems were built not by honest trade but by legalized theft. This is the story of pirates who weren't pirates, of governments that outsourced robbery, and of how state-sponsored looting became a business model, one whose logic still shapes the global economy today. Setting the stage, a world built on scarcity and war. To understand privateers, we have to understand the world they came from. Between the 15th and 18th centuries, Europe was locked in near constant conflict. Empires rose and fell based on three things: control of trade routes, access to precious metals, the ability to fund war, however, was expensive. Standing navies were costly to build and maintain. Most governments were chronically short on cash. Tax systems were inefficient. Central banking, as we know it, barely existed. So states faced a brutal problem. How do you weaken your enemies, enrich your treasury, and expand power without paying upfront? The answer was elegant and dangerous. They outsourced violence. Origins: the birth of legal piracy. Enter the letter of Marque. A letter of marque was a government-issued license that allowed private ship owners to attack enemy vessels legally. With it, a pirate became a privateer. The state authorized the violence, and in return took a cut of the loot. Cause and effect was simple. Governments lacked money and ships, private merchants had ships and crews. The state legalized plunder. Everyone made money, at least at first. This wasn't rogue behavior, it was official policy. England, France, Spain, and the Dutch Republic all embraced privateering. Some governments relied on it so heavily that privateers outnumbered official naval ships. And the line between patriot and criminal. Paper thin, the rise. When looting became a system, privateering exploded during periods of intense rivalry, especially between England and Spain. Take Sir Francis Drake, celebrated in British history as a hero. In Spanish records, he was known as El Drac, the dragon. Drake raided Spanish ports, stole silver shipments, and crippled Spain's finances. The results were staggering. Spanish silver financed European wars. English privateers drained Spanish treasure fleets. Profits funded shipbuilding, trade companies, and early banks. This wasn't random theft. It was economic warfare. Privateering didn't just enrich individuals, it shaped institutions. The profits helped fund the British East India Company, an entity that began as a trading firm and became a shadow government with its own army. Loot flowed into London, capital accumulated, credit expanded, and quietly, a pattern formed. Violence generated capital gives capital, funded institutions gives institutions gain political power. The breaking point, when control slipped away, but systems built on plunder carry a fatal flaw. Once you normalize theft, it's hard to contain it. Privateers didn't always respect boundaries. When wars ended, letters of marque expired. Crews were suddenly unemployed but still armed. Many simply kept going. This is where real piracy surged. Former privateers turned rogue. They attacked neutral ships. They ignored flags. They destabilized trade instead of supporting it. Governments faced blowback. Trade insurance costs exploded. Merchants demanded protection. Allies accused each other of bad faith. The very tool meant to weaken enemies now threatened global commerce. Cause led to consequence. State-sponsored looting had escaped state control. Fallout: the end of privateering. By the mid-19th century, the cost-benefit equation flipped. Industrialization changed warfare. Standing navies became more effective. Global trade required stability, not chaos. In 1856, major European powers signed the Declaration of Paris, banning privateering. On paper, legalized piracy ended, but the logic behind it did not. Governments had learned something crucial. You don't need to loot directly, you can design systems that extract value automatically. The methods evolved, the incentives remained. Failed fixes from ships to spreadsheets privateering disappeared. Financial engineering replaced it. Instead of ships seizing gold, states relied on sovereign debt, central banks, currency control, trade imbalances. The violence became abstract, the victims harder to identify. Colonial extraction replaced maritime plunder. Then debt replaced colonialism. Countries were no longer invaded with cannons, but with loans. The same cause and effect pattern repeated. States overspend, borrowing fills the gap, creditors gain leverage, sovereignty erodes quietly, no black flags required. Modern parallels the new privateers. Today, no one issues letters of marque, but ask yourself, what's the modern equivalent? Consider this. Nations compete economically rather than militarily. Financial institutions profit from instability, bailouts, socialize losses, privatize gains, debt payments flow upward. Indefinitely, global debt now exceeds $300 trillion. Much of it can never realistically be repaid. So, why does the system continue? Because, like privateering, it serves those closest to power. Modern privateers don't raid ships, they extract value through interest, inflation, and structural dependence. And like before, the system is justified as necessary, legal, and unavoidable. Until it isn't. Repeating patterns, history rhymes, look back across centuries, and the pattern is clear. States face financial pressure. They outsource extraction, profits, concentrate control, weakens the system, collapses, or mutates. Pirates gives privateers, gives corporations, gives financial institutions different costumes. Same incentives. The mystery from the beginning now has an answer. The most effective looters in history weren't outlaws. They were partners. 3 takeaways. First, legal authority does not equal moral legitimacy. Some of history's greatest thefts were fully authorized. Second, systems built on extraction always expand beyond their original purpose and eventually turn inward. Third, when profit depends on instability, stability becomes the enemy. Warning: the open question, privateering ended only after it threatened the system it served. So here's the open question for our time. What happens when modern financial extraction destabilizes the very economies it feeds on? History suggests the answer won't be peaceful and it won't be accidental. Call to action: if this story changed how you see pirates, power, or modern finance, stay curious. Subscribe for more deep dives into the hidden mechanics of money, debt, and control. Because the most important battles today aren't fought with cannons but with systems you were never meant to see. And as history keeps reminding us, when looting becomes policy, collapse is only a matter of time.